Hello, everybody. Happy Purim. Happy Purim. Talking to you. It's Aubrey from Alexander Mas High School in Israel, from Hod Sharon. Actually, I'm talking from my home in Arad. And I want to welcome you to this pre-Purim video. It's Purim coming up Saturday night after Shabbat, Saturday night and all day Sunday. I think it's going to be great. I'm really excited for it. The current students at the Alexander Mas High School in Israel are now getting ready for Purim. Everybody's putting on their costumes. I thought I would do my little bit as well. Actually, to tell you the honest truth, probably be easier without this thing. So let's take a little break from it so that we can actually talk about Purim just for the moment while we're still getting ready. Okay, so costumes. It's a lot of excitement. In the school at the moment, kids are getting really ready. We're going to have a costume party on Thursday night, and then we're going to be putting on the costumes again on Saturday night for Purim, again on Sunday. Wow, what's it all about? Why do we wear costumes? I'm sure it's fun, everybody's enjoying it, but is there something deeper to the idea of wearing a costume for Purim? It's not even all that ancient a custom. We're studying history, and if we'd gone back 1,000 years, I don't think Jews wore costumes for Purim. It's probably a custom that started in the Middle Ages. So why did it happen? And why did it become so popular? And what's the big deal? And is there any real roots for this? So let's try and understand a little bit about it. First of all, what do you feel when you put on a Purim costume? By the way, I'm from Scotland, from Britain, and we used to call it fancy dress. We didn't call it costume. And when I say that to my American students today, they laugh at me, like they laugh at me at many things. Why put on fancy dress? What does that mean? What's fancy about the dress? What's the big deal? In order to do that, we need to look at what costumes are people wearing and why. What are we actually trying to say when we're putting on a costume? We're having fun, but what's that mean? Now, I'll give you an example, maybe if I may. My daughter, she's dressing up this year as an air hostess. She's working very hard to make a nice air hostess uniform. Why? Because deep down inside her, she wants to go flying. So she's giving expression to that wish. It's basically her way of saying, Daddy, will you please take me for a flight? I want to go and fly somewhere in the world. Other people wear all sorts of crazy things. But when we're wearing these crazy things, what are we actually expressing? Sometimes we wear something which is 180 degrees the opposite of who we really are. For Purim, I'm going to be somebody else. Normally, I'm a well-behaved student. I'm a well-behaved teacher. I don't know. I keep the rules. So I'm going to be a criminal. I'm going to be, I don't know. Sometimes we dress up as our favorite heroes from film, from cinema, from wherever. Our favorite characters, our favorite Disney characters. We're indulging in a fantasy. We're playing out a role that isn't our regular role. But when I say it's not our regular role, it's touching a very deep point somewhere in my personality of there's a side of me that wants to be that. Maybe I'll express this idea a little bit better if we talk about little children. If you go to the kindergarten, go to the Jewish preschool and see the Purim Party, they're all dressed up. Many of them, they're kings and they're queens and they're princesses. Some of them are Power Rangers. Some of them are, all sorts of characters. Some of them are Invincibles and some of them are, They are being something else. When a little girl dresses up as a beautiful, pretty princess, what's she saying? Is she saying, really? I'm a little girl? And just today, for one day, I'm going to be a princess? Or is she saying the opposite? Really, I'm a princess. And all year round, I disguise myself as a little girl in preschool. In other words, we're playing with Purim with that question of, what's my real identity? And do I have a secret identity? And how do I play with these different identities? Now, if this is true, My favourite book. I must recommend it. It's called the Tanakh. If we turn to the actual story of the Megillah, first of all, we'll see that clothes are there the whole time. In the Megillah, people are constantly changing dresses, wearing different things, expressing themselves or hiding themselves through clothes. The story of the Megillah begins when the king, Achashverosh, demands his wife, the queen Vashti, to come to the party, to the all-male party. And the Megillah says she should come wearing Beketer Malchut, wearing the royal crown. The rabbis suggest what he really means is wearing just the royal crown. Just the royal crown. Wow! Wearing nothing. And she refuses. She basically says, I refuse to be what you want me to be. You're trying to make me something other than what I am. I'm not going to be that. You're trying to turn me, in this case, he's trying to humiliate her. He's trying to expose her. She refuses to do it. She's not going to come. She's not going to go along with that. She wants to hold on to her identity. That question of identity is the number one question that runs its way through the whole of the Megillah. Sorry about that there. Sorry. That question of identity is the number one question that runs its way through the whole of the Megillah. What is the identity of the Jews? In order to do that, I want to give 3 minutes of history. You guys are all, many of you watching this are graduates of us. You can deal with 3 minutes of history. When does the story happen? The Jews were exiled in Babylon. The Jews were given permission to return to Jerusalem, to Eretz Israel, after the exile in Babylon. Some of them didn't leave. In fact, lots of them didn't leave. And the story of Esther takes place sometime in the middle of the 5th century BCE in Persia, with a bunch of Jews who chose to stay there, who are actually in Persia of their own free will. And you know what they're busy doing? They're busy assimilating. They've made the choice to stay there, and you know they're assimilating away, and they're disappearing. And that question is really out there. Who are you? Are you Persian? Are you Jewish? How can you play with two identities? Are you one or the other? Like, what exactly are you? That is the same question that faces Esther and Mordechai. Esther and Mordechai are two leaders of the Persian Jewish community, or maybe Mordechai's a leader and Esther's a young girl, who are also caught up in this question of, who are you? And Esther is taken away from Mordechai and taken into the palace, and Mordechai says to her, shh, don't say who you are. Play it down. Don't make it obvious who you are. Keep your identity a secret. And Esther's taken into the royal palace, into the harem where she's prepared for the king, and her identity is a big secret. Now, if we follow the story of the book of Esther, in chapter 2, it describes how all the girls that were taken to the royal palace were prepared for their romantic encounter with the king. And the eunuch in charge of the harem dressed up every girl in some sort of way to express something seductive. Esther refuses. Esther says, I'm not wearing a costume. I'm not going to be anything other than myself. I don't want to dress up. I'm trying to be who I am. And when she's taken to the king chooses her. Why does he choose her? Maybe because he felt her authenticity. Maybe he felt, wow, this girl's real. She knows who she is. She's standing up for something. Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe. Why do I say I'm not sure? Because later on in the story, Haman, the evil Haman, tries to kill the Jews. Now let's follow what happens. Mordechai gets the news that there's a decree out there to kill the Jews. And the Megillah tells us as follows. Mordechai goes out Vayikra Mordechai et bagadav, he tore his clothes. Vayilbash, he dressed up. Sag va'efer, he wears clothes of mourning. And then we're told that Esther sends clothes to him. Vatishlach begadim lalbish et Mordechai. She said, I want you to dress differently. I want you to dress up. I want you to, don't make a big deal. Like, hide who you are. Mordechai is saying, I'm a Jew, and I'm going to show the whole world I'm a Jew. I'm going to dress in a way that expresses something. And Esther sends him different clothes and says, maybe not. Maybe try and hide that identity. Maybe play it down. Right? So the struggle between Mordechai and Esther in the Megillah is, how do you dress? What costume do you wear? And what are you expressing with that costume? In other words, if we try to get deep into what's the story of the Megillah about, why is this story so important? Why is this festival so powerful, so amazing? It's really because it sounds extremely familiar to us today. We're talking about Jews who are living of their own free will, far away from the land of Israel, and they're facing a crisis. The crisis has got two aspects. The external crisis is there's people out there who want to get them. There's anti-Semitism. But there's also an internal crisis, which is the Jews have to ask themselves, what's their true identity? Which bit of me is the true bit? Which bit of me is the bit that I show the world? Which bit of me do I keep to myself? That goes back even to the names. Well, it's called the Book of Esther. But what's her real name? Bet you all know the answer to that, don't you? Yes, you're right. It only tells us once in the whole Megillah, but it does tell us her real name is Hadassah. Now, what's the difference between Hadassah and Esther? Hadassah is a Hebrew name. Esther is actually a Persian name. Nowadays, it's become a very, very popular Jewish name, thanks to her, thanks to our Queen Esther. But deep down, it's a Persian name. So, the thing goes like this. Who is she? Actually, the whole Megillah is all about this young girl asking herself, which of my two identities is the one that I want to express the most, and which is the one I want to keep hidden? Am I Hadassah, the nice Jewish girl? Or am I Esther, which in this case means the girl who's trying very hard to fit into Persia and to be a Persian like all the other Persians? In a sense, that is the key dilemma of the Megillah. Who are you, Esther? And if that is the key dilemma in the Megillah, then that's the key dilemma for all the Jews as well. In other words, it's not just Esther, it's everyone. Because the story of the Megillah is what happens when we forget our dreams? What happens when we get stuck in the exile, when we don't really remember, when we don't hold on to our Jewish identity? What happens when we're fundamentally wearing a costume the whole time, and sometimes we get confused between what's our costume and what's not our costume? Which bit of me is the real bit? That carries on. If we go on to the end of the Megillah, it's playing with us as well. At the very end of the Megillah, we're told about Mordechai's clothes. Mordechai, who when he heard the terrible things that were happening to the Jews, he tore his clothes. He put on sackcloth and ashes and mourned. At the end of the Megillah, towards the end of the Megillah, we're told, Mordechai yatsa milifnei hamelech. Mordechai comes out from the presence of the king, and he's wearing these incredible clothes. Belevush malchut, with royal clothes. Tchelet v'chor. He's wearing like amazing clothes. He's wearing clothes which are expressing, you know what? I'm a Jew. It stresses there, the tchelet. He's wearing clothes that remind us of the high priest in the temple on Yom Kippur, the high priest serving in the temple. The clothes that he's wearing is his decision. You know what? I've decided which bit of me is the bit that I connect to at the deepest level. There's another dimension to this. If the whole story of the Megillah is about people putting on costume and taking on costume, shedding identity and discovering identity, there's one other character in the Megillah who also seems to be in costume, in hiding, and that's God. God's really well disguised. You know, when you go into a Purim party, there's some people, you see them, you laugh at your costume, and that's funny. And then there's some people, you see them and you say, who the heck is that? I don't even recognize this person. He or she is so well disguised in their costume. Well, in the Megillah, who is the most disguised character? It's God. He's disguised so well, he's in hiding. He's disguised so well, he's not even mentioned in the story. He's hiding. What costume is he wearing? He's wearing this really amazing Purim costume called reality. God's hiding in between the lines of the Megillah. He's hiding in between the lines of reality. And so when we read the Megillah, we're looking for him as well. We're trying to see him through the costume. If I translate all of that back into English, when we're looking in the world, we don't always see the reasons for things. We don't always see why things are happening, right? But sometimes we look through and we say, hey, I worked out your costume. I can see you there. So basically, that's really a big deal of what Purim's about. We're going to put on costumes and we're going to be having a lot of fun. And those of us that are not at HSI and maybe over age 18, maybe we'll have a little l'chaim as well. And when we have that little l'chaim, we'll be saying, just 1 minute. When we have that little l'chaim, we'll be saying to ourselves, who am I? And who do I really, really want to be? And I hope that we'll be acting out deep down who we really want to be. I hope that we'll be looking into our identities and we'll be saying to myself, there's a big part of me that's a Jew. And sometimes I have to wear a costume, but I really know who I am. I really know who I want to be. That's an incredible thing. Purim is like touching deep, deep into our lives. But the way we get there is through tremendous joy, through tremendous celebration. Wow! Because when we realize who I really am, that's a great reason for happiness and rejoicing. I really hope that that's what happened to a lot of people when they came to HSI. All these weeks or months of studying, deep down, it helps you say, I really think I know who I am. I know what's a costume, I know what isn't, and I'm ready to really connect to who I am. I want to wish everybody, wherever you are, have an amazingly joyous, happy Purim. Have a great time. Chag Sameach, and bye-bye from Israel.